getting his way. He gave Andrew a brief rundown of how they'd been treating Caleb, including the few medications they'd been giving him. Andrew didn't have a chance to ask many questions, as Alphonse's phone gave a shrill ring, and the man left the room after giving Andrew a quick pat on the shoulder. Alone with his patient for the first time, Andrew glanced down at Caleb's supine form. His stomach fluttered. For someone as thick as Caleb was, the man was still incredibly handsome. He could imagine running his fingers through Caleb's deep brown hair, the way Caleb's stubble would scratch at Andrew's face when they kissed. Andrew grumbled to himself for his unprofessional thoughts and forced his mind to ignore Caleb's looks and focus on him as a patient. He grabbed a notebook and a pen from his bag and began making quick notes for the non-existent chart. With the little information he'd been told, the page remained mostly blank. Andrew grabbed his stethoscope and blood pressure cuff from his bag. Caleb's pulse rate was high, too high for a man apparently unconscious. Andrew jotted down the time and figure and wrapped the cuff around Caleb's upper arm. When he pumped the air into the device, he got his first reaction from his patient. Caleb's eyes flew open, and he jerked at the black binding on his arm. Andrew laid his hand on Caleb's chest and spoke in his matter-of-fact nurse's voice. "Shh. You're fine. I need to take your blood pressure. Let's just take a minute. You can calm down, and we'll get this done, okay?" Caleb frowned and looked around the room. "Father?" he whispered hoarsely. "He's downstairs. My name is Andrew, and your father asked me to help take care of you for a few days." Caleb's dark eyes widened, and he seemed to notice Andrew's scrubs and nursing tools at the same time. "You're the new nurse?" "I am. Now let's take your blood pressure, okay?" "Fine. Not that it matters." Andrew didn't respond to the negative tone and completed the test. He jotted down a note and turned back to his patient. "Anything I can do for you?" Caleb grumbled. "I need to piss." "Not a problem. Can you walk, or is there a bedpan for your use?" "I can fucking walk." Caleb struggled to sit up and then tossed away the blanket covering his legs. After several deep breaths, he slid his legs over the edge of the bed and pushed to his feet. He wobbled for a moment before taking several shaky steps toward the bathroom. Andrew fought to keep his distance, not wanting to damage Caleb's pride further. He kept his eyes on him, though, and was prepared to move quickly should Caleb's steps falter. Caleb stopped at the doorway and rested against the frame for a minute. He rubbed his hand over his hip and winced. This time, Andrew made a mental note. It might be something worth remembering when he learned more about Caleb's illness. By the time Caleb used the facilities and made it back to the bed, Andrew had stripped and remade it using spare sheets he'd located in the bureau next to the bed. Caleb collapsed back onto the mattress with a low groan. Andrew covered him up. "What would you like to drink? Something to eat, perhaps?" "Ugh," Caleb moaned. "I haven't been able to keep much down in days." Andrew scooped up his notebook, and Caleb reached over to grab his arm. "Do you have to write everything down?" "Well, I don't have to. But since no one will tell me what's wrong with you, I'm kind of flying blind here. I don't know what's significant, so I'm tracking anything and everything until I know more." Caleb huffed out a laugh. "So Father didn't tell you anything. No surprise there. He'd like to keep me isolated and this whole thing a secret until it's resolved." Andrew looked around the dark room. "Seems like he's doing a good job of it so far." "Tell me about it. Would you mind helping me raise the bed? I'd like to sit up for a while, I think." "No problem." Andrew crouched at the head of the bed and adjusted the levers until Caleb was raised enough to be comfortable. "How's that?" "Perfect." "So where'd Dumb and Dumber get off to?" Andrew couldn't hide his smirk at the nicknames. "I assume you're referring to Scally and Scullier?" Caleb burst out laughing just as the door to the bedroom opened and Alphonse walked in. He stood stunned in the entrance when he saw Caleb sitting up and smiling. "Hey, Pop." Alphonse rushed to Caleb's side and cupped his cheek. "My son, you look better." "No worries, Pop. Laughter is the best medicine, and Andrew here cracked me up." Alphonse sent a look filled with gratitude Andrew's way before turning back to his son. "Any changes?" The smile slipped from Caleb's face. He shook his head and raised his hand to cover his father's where it rested against his face. "I know you're doing everything you can. We'll figure this out." Alphonse nodded. Andrew, would you excuse us for a minute? Already feeling like an intruder on the moment, Andrew nodded. He scooped up the soiled linens and backed out of the room, closing the door behind him. Finding his way back to the entrance hall only took a moment, but he had no idea where to go from there. Deciding to explore, Andrew opened a random door and peeked inside. Another hallway. Sheesh, did this place ever end? He followed the marble tiles to more doorways and checked each one in turn. Finally, he located the kitchen at the end of the hall. Not seeing anyone else, Andrew poked around the room until he found the washer and dryer in a large pantry. He piled the sheets on top and nearly leapt out of his skin when he heard growling behind him. He turned around, tensed for an attack, and found two large gray and black dogs in cages behind the door. Their hackles were raised, and one bared its teeth and snarled at Andrew. "Good doggy. I'm just going to throw these clothes in the wash. I'll leave you alone." Andrew kept one eye on the dogs while he flipped open the machine and stuffed the linens inside. He did a quick search for detergent and dumped some in before slamming the lid shut and starting the wash cycle. The dogs continued their threatening noises until Andrew left the room and closed the door behind him. He let out a deep breath and realized his hands were shaking. He wondered what exactly Alphonse did that he required two hulking bodyguards, as well as dogs that seemed ready to chow down first, get commands later. He couldn't let that worry him, though. He straightened his spine and went over to the refrigerator to try and find something that might tempt Caleb to eat. He found a bottle of sports drink, some fruit, and a container of yogurt. Grabbing what he needed, Andrew made his way back to Caleb's room. With a quick knock on the door, he pushed it open while balancing Caleb's snack. Caleb was alone in the room, his eyes closed. He opened them when he heard Andrew come in and smirked when he saw him trying to balance the drinks and snacks. "Ooh, what's all that?" he asked over a huge yawn. "Something for you to eat and drink. Gotta have your fluids." Yeah. Andrew set everything down on the side table and opened the plastic lid on the drink bottle. He passed it over to Caleb, who took a slow drink. "Orange. Well, sorry. That's the only kind down there, or I'd get you something else." "Yeah, my dad likes this flavor. He keeps it handy." "Well, let me know what you'd prefer, and I'll make sure there's some here." He carried a bunch of grapes into the bathroom and gave them a quick rinse before setting them on a clean towel and carrying them back to Caleb. "Give these a try." Caleb popped one into his mouth and chewed. "I'll eat grapes, but I hate yogurt. You can have that." Andrew shrugged and sat down on the edge of the bed. He opened the yogurt and gave it a quick stir. "Too bad I didn't think to look for granola." Caleb winced. "That's even worse. I'd rather have a big steak." "Ah, a meat and potatoes kind of guy, huh?" "Yeah, if you hold the potatoes." Andrew shook his head and nibbled on the yogurt while making sure Caleb continued eating and drinking. After a few minutes, his patient visibly drooped. Andrew gathered up the grapes and the drink and lowered the bed. "Go ahead and get some rest. I'll be here for another few hours if you need anything." Chapter 2. Andrew trundled up the steps to his apartment and cursed at the lack of light. He'd been meaning to call the office to let them know that the overhead lights were out again, but he kept forgetting. There were too many other pressing issues on his mind these days. His mind drifted back to his patient. Caleb would be in his thoughts for the rest of the evening. He hadn't woken up before the end of Andrew's scheduled shift, but his restless sleep and obvious pain had Andrew concerned. He shouldn't have agreed to the 3-day window that Alphonse requested. It really was foolish on his part to take responsibility for the care of a patient when he didn't know what he was treating. He didn't know what to watch for, other than the obvious. The stairs creaked ominously, and Andrew stepped over the third from the top. It was loose, and yet another thing that the management company didn't see fit to repair. With a drawn-out sigh, Andrew started toward his door. He'd get out of this dump as soon as he could. It wouldn't be soon enough. A dark shadow moved in front of his door, and Andrew froze. "Hey, Andy." Fuck. Just what he needed. A surprise visit from his brother. "What do you want, Daniel?" "I just, was wondering if you could..." "You can stop right there. No, I am not helping you." "I've helped you enough, don't you think? What with a maxed-out credit card and wiped-out savings account, which you accidentally borrowed?" Danny stepped closer and tried to use his pitiful look on Andrew. Fortunately for Andrew, he was immune to it. He'd grown up with the sorrowful glances and poor me expressions his baby brother used to get his way. Had put up with it his entire life. No one would say no to poor, sweet Danny. Now come on, Andy. I explained what happened. I was in real trouble. You had the money. I'll pay you back. Andrew shoved past him and fumbled for his keys. I'm not stupid, Daniel. You won't pay me back, and you never had any intention of it. You stole from me. That money was supposed to be my cushion while I found a full-time job. Now I have nothing, thanks to you. You're just lucky I didn't call the cops like I should have. Danny pouted and tried to follow Andrew inside. Andrew held the door and wouldn't let his brother through. Come on, Andy. You gotta help me just a bit more. This is serious. I'm gonna be in real trouble with these guys if I don't get them their money. Andrew shook his head and tried to control his temper. I've helped you all I can, Danny. You wiped me out. I have zero savings and a maxed-out credit card with huge interest rates because of the cash advances. I can't even pay my bills, much less help you get out of this mess. Andy, please. I'm begging you, as your brother. Help me out here. I swear, Danny, even if I had it, I wouldn't give it to you. I just got a job, and you know what my first paycheck is going to? Buying food. Because you took everything. I can't even buy groceries right now. It'll be a neat trick to make sure I have enough to pay rent and keep the lights on. You don't understand. I had to take it. This is bad, Andy. Real bad. I need you to find a way. Maybe ask your boss for an advance or something? Come on. Anybody who can afford a private nurse has to be able to give you a little up front. Fuck you, Danny. I said no and I meant it. I'm not asking Mr. DiMartino for anything. I can't lose this job. You need to leave. And until you bring back the 10 grand you borrowed, I really don't want to see you. He felt the slightest twinge of guilt when he slammed the door in Danny's face. But damn, getting a call from his credit card company saying he had suspicious activity, and then finding out his entire savings account had been emptied, took the little patience Andrew had from his brother and sent it sailing on by. Whatever trouble Danny had gotten himself into this time, Andrew could only hope that he found a way out of it. His brother had an addictive personality. You name it, Danny tried it. Not just tried it, but went in 110%. Drinking, drugs, gambling, those were his newest vices. Andrew hadn't realized how bad Danny's addictions had grown until the money had come up missing. He'd known right away what had happened. Danny had crashed with him for a couple of days, and the next week the money was gone. And so was his brother. He dropped his duffel on the floor by the couch and headed for the shower. His neck and shoulders were killing him. If he didn't get some of the tension out of them, he'd have the headache from hell tomorrow. And tomorrow meant another day of double time at the Mystery Mansion. He couldn't afford to miss that paycheck. Caleb was more than just a paycheck, though. No matter what Andrew's financial situation was, Caleb really needed his help. The analytical part of Andrew's mind began to make a checklist of possible medical issues. What could be wrong with him? Andrew mumbled Caleb's visible symptoms to himself as he stripped and dropped his scrubs into the dirty clothes basket. He knew just enough to know he had no idea. Surely Alphonse had brought in a doctor for his son. The man certainly seemed to care for him a great deal. Well, 2 more days and Andrew would know. Or he'd be out of a job. One way or another. Andrew wasn't quite sure which way he would prefer. He ran the water as hot as he could stand it and stood under the spray. He bent his neck forward and let the water pound directly on the most tender spots. One thing he'd give this place credit for was the great water pressure. Sure, the tank only held about 5 minutes of hot water,